Republicans more than prevailed in yesterday's midterm elections and across the country. Voters came out strongly to express support for huge tax cuts for the rich, reduced corporate oversight, relaxed environmental standards, geostrategic unilateralism, and an ideologically hardline conservative judiciary. Well, what'd you think you were voting for?
So there's no doubt that one of the major issues of 20th century history, surely in the United States, is corporate propaganda. That's a huge industry. In fact, it extends over obviously the commercial media, but the whole range of systems that reach the public, the entertainment industry, television, a good bit of what appears in the schools, a lot of what appears straight out in the newspapers and so on. Huge amount of that comes straight out of the public relations industry, which was established in this country early in the century and sort of developed mainly in the 20s and on, and has become an enormous industry. It's now spreading over the rest of the world, but it's primarily here. And its goal from the beginning, perfectly openly and consciously, was to control the public mind, as they put it. And the reason was that the public mind was seen as the greatest threat to corporations. That's from early in the century. Business power was strong, but it's a very free country by comparative standards, and it's hard to call on state violence, not impossible, but hard to call upon state violence to crush people's efforts to achieve freedom and rights and justice. So therefore it was recognized early on that it's going to be necessary to control people's minds. I should say that's not a new insight either. You know, you can read it in David Hume and the Enlightenment, where it was already recognized. In fact, you go back to the earliest stirrings of democratic revolutions in England in the 17th century, and there already was concern that we're not going to be able to control people by force, and we therefore have to control them by other means, controlling what they think, what they feel, their attitudes toward one another. I mean, all sorts of mechanisms of control are going to have to be devised, which will replace the efficient use of force and violence that was available to a much greater extent earlier on, and as has been fortunately declining, you know, not uniformly, but often declining through the years, particularly here, leading to the need for other methods of control.
Excuse me, sir. Would you mind getting out of your train of thought?
Huh? What?
Where's the big idea, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, officer. I don't understand. I was thinking.
Yeah, your mind was wandering all over the place. May I see your degree, please?
Sure, here.
Take it out of the frame.
Sorry. It's a community college learner's permit.
You need a BA to drive this idea home.
Oh, I must have been lateral thinking and not realized it.
Uh-huh.
See, I had to think fast to get around that mental block back there, and I didn't notice the limits.
This degree is expired. I ought to throw the encyclopedia at you.
Why? Is this a controlled thought zone?
Yes, it is, sir. See the sign?
School. I guess I was letting my thoughts wander all over the avenue of consideration.
Uh-huh. You almost collided with established dogma back at those presumptions.
I wasn't thinking straight.
I see. Have you been drinking, sir?
A couple of beers, but I'm not illogical.
Well, it should stop your thought process right now, but I'm going to give you a ticket for quick thinking.
That's 3 points off my IQ.
And the fine is a penny for your thoughts.
I'll get back into the flow of normal thought, officer.
You go straight to your inevitable conclusion. It's foregone. You can't miss it.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes. Thank you very much, officer.
Okay, off with you. Kids, too damn smart for their own good.
But I am into the intellectual thing. I went to college. I studied the great philosophers, Socrates. I studied Plato, and you learn the important things. Like if you're studying geology, which is all facts, as soon as you get out of school, you forget it all, because it's just numbers and things. But philosophy, you remember just enough to screw you up for the rest of your life. And you studied the important, like ethical questions. Is it okay to yell movie in a crowded firehouse? Religious questions. Does the Pope shit in the woods? And keep waiting sometime, oh. If there is a God, give me a sign. See, I told you that the... Wouldn't it be weird if you died and you woke up and you were in heaven? Just like they always told you? And everybody had wings on and pearly gates. Wouldn't you feel stupid? Oh, no.
You mean that this is what... Oh! In college, they said this was all bullshit.
Oh, well, I'll just come in and... What? You been keeping records on me? Well, it wasn't so bad. How many times did I take the Lord's name in vain? Ugh. 1,000,006. Oh. Jesus Christ. We're going to get to the meat of the act pretty soon. I'm just kind of coasting here. Hey, what do you want for $4? I want a real show or something? I don't need this, you know what I mean? I'm a neat guy. No place to go. More wine.
Galileo's head was on the block. The crime was looking up the truth. And as the bombshells of my daily fears explode, I try to trace them to my youth. And then you had to bring up reincarnation over a couple of beers the other night. And now I'm serving time for mistakes made by another in another lifetime. How long till my soul gets it right? Did any human being ever reach that kind of light? I call on the resting soul of Galileo, king of night vision, king of insight. I think about my fear of motion, which I never could explain. Some other fool across the ocean years ago must have crashed his little airplane. How long till my soul gets it right? Can any human being ever reach that kind of light? I call on the resting soul of Galilee. lifetime. Now I have to pay. But then again, it feels like some sort of inspiration to let the next life off the hook. Or she'll say, look what I had to overcome from my last life. I think I'll write a book. How long till my soul gets it right? Any human being ever reach the highest light? Except for Galileo, king of night vision, king of insight. How long till my soul gets it right? Till we reach the highest light. Till my soul gets it right? Till we reach the highest light.
It's so hard. It's so hard to believe in anything anymore. You know what I mean? It's like religion. I mean, you can't really take it seriously because it seems so mythological and it seems so arbitrary. And then on the other hand, science, you know, it's just pure empiricism, and by virtue of its method, it excludes metaphysics. And I guess I wouldn't believe in anything if it weren't for my lucky astrology mood watch. College, you feel so small, you know? You go to college, you study about guys like Leonardo, who did everything. A scientist, a great painter, a great architect and designer. And you feel like an idiot. And I wanted to, you know, expand my life in the way that Leonardo did, and that's why I took up juggling. I know what you're saying. You're saying, Steve, where do you find time to juggle? Well, I juggle in my mind. Whoops. Okay.
Okay. Enough comedy jokes.
All right.
What's your moon watch say?
Yeah, I remember when I had my first beer.
People always want to know how you get started on this job. I guess they ask musicians too, and actors and everything, but they always want to know how you got started. They say, how did you get started? Say to you, did you always want to be a comedian? Well, not in the womb, but right after that, yes. I did. But class clown is when you really do get a chance to kind of work out, you know. Because the classroom is the best place. Classroom's best because, well, no one's allowed to laugh there. And suppressed laughter, you know, is the easiest to get, the most fun. You know, like when you're kneeling in front of a casket. During the sermon, whatever it is. And in the classroom, class clown always sounds like there was only one of them, you know? Always sounds like the class clown, but that's not true, really. There was, you know, quite often there were 2 or 3 or 4 of them. Sometimes you'd have a whole classroom full of them, yeah. If the main guy was absent, second banana would fill in, right? Yeah. It's true. Most of the time in class, I was tempted to fool around, man. Get someone's, that's what it was, yeah. You'd be bored and you'd figure, well, why not deprive someone else of their education? And you would set about disrupting the class by attracting attention to yourself. That is the name of this job, you know. It's called Dig Me. Yeah, it was like, hey guys, didn't make the team, but... Yeah. I say, hey, he's crazy, man. Hey, you want to go to the party? Wow. Yeah, you went to all the parties. Got the last girl, but you went to all the parties, man.
When I think back on all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all. And my lack of education hasn't hurt me none. I can read the writing on the wall. Kodachrome, give us those nice bright colors. Give us the greens of summers. Makes you think all the words of a sunny day. Oh yeah, I got an Nikon camera. I love to take a photograph. So mama, don't take my Kodachrome away. If you took all the girls I knew when I was single and brought them all together for one night, I know they'd never match my sweet imagination. And everything looks worse in black and white. Kodachrome, they give us those nice bright colors. They give us the greens of summers. Makes you think all the words of a sunny day. Oh yeah, I got a Nikon camera. I love to take photographs. So mama, don't take my Kodachrome away. Mama, don't take my Kodachrome away. Mama, don't take my Kodachrome away. Mama, don't take my Kodachrome away.
I really haven't seen this many people in one place since they took the group photographs of all the criminals and lawbreakers in the Ronald Reagan administration. Yeah. Yeah, oh. 225 of them so far. 225 different people in the Ronald Reagan administration have either quit, been fired, been arrested, indicted, or convicted of either breaking the law or violating the ethics code. 225 of them. And Edwin Meese alone has been investigated by 3 separate special prosecutors, and there's a 4th one waiting for him in Washington right now. 3 separate special prosecutors have had to look into the activities of the Attorney General, and the Attorney General is the nation's leading law enforcement officer. See, that's what you got to remember. This is the Ronald Reagan administration we're talking about. These are the law and order people. These are the people who are against street crime. They want to put street criminals in jail to make life safer for the business criminals. They're against street crime. Yeah. Yeah, they're against street crime, providing that street isn't Wall Street. And the Supreme Court decided about a year ago that it's all right to put people in jail now if we just think they're going to commit a crime. It's called preventive detention. All you got to do now is just think they're going to commit a crime. Well, if we'd have known this shit 7 or 8 years ago, we could have put a bunch of these Republican motherfuckers directly into prison. Yeah. Put them in the joint where they belong, and we could have saved the money of putting these country club pin-headed assholes on trial. Another thing you got to remember, this is the group of people who were elected with the help of the moral majority. Elected with the help of the moral majority and the Teamsters Union. That's a good combination. Organized religion and organized crime working together to help build a better America. Another thing. Keep in mind, these Reagan people are the ones that were going to get government off our backs. Remember that? That was the rhetoric of the 1980 campaign. We'll get government off your backs and out of your lives. Yeah, but they still want to tell you what magazines you can read, and they still want to tell you what rock lyrics you can listen to, and they still want to force your kids to pray in school, and they still want to tell you what you can say on the radio. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, decided all by itself that radio and television were the only two parts of American life not protected by the free speech provisions of the First Amendment to the Constitution. I'd like to repeat that because it sounds vaguely important. The FCC, an appointed body, not elected, answerable only to the president, decided on its own that radio and television were the only two parts of American life not protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. And why did they decide that? Because they got a letter from a minister in Mississippi. A Reverend Donald Wildman in Mississippi heard something on the radio that he didn't like. Well, Reverend, did anyone ever tell you there are two knobs on the radio? Knobs on the radio. Of course, I'm sure the Reverend isn't that comfortable with anything that has two knobs on it. But hey, Reverend, there are two knobs on the radio. One of them turns the radio off, and the other one changes the station. Imagine that, Reverend. You can actually change the station. It's called freedom of choice, and it's one of the principles this country was founded upon. Look it up in the library, Reverend, if you have any of them left when you finish burning all the books. Let's get back to Ronald Reagan and his criminal gang. When last we left them, they were going to get government off our backs. Yeah, but when it comes to abortion, they don't mind government being in a woman's uterus, do they? Yeah, backs are no good, but uterus is okay by them. These people call themselves right-to-lifers. Don't you love that phrase? And don't you love the way these kind of people pervert the English language? Right-to-lifers. You realize that most of the right-to-lifers are in favor of the death penalty? And they support the South American death squads, and they're against gun control, and they're against nuclear weapons control. When they say right to life, they're talking about their right to decide which people should live or die. So these right-wingers, you know, so these Reagan people, these right-wingers in general, these crypto-fascists, they're against homosexuality. They're against pornography. They're against sex education. They're against abortion. Yeah, they're going to get government off your back, but they're going to tell you how to live your sex life. And let me ask you this, how would they know anything about it? Have you ever taken a look at those people? No wonder they're afraid of their bodies. Take a look at them. Doesn't it strike you as mildly ironic that most of the people who are against abortion are people you wouldn't want to fuck in the first place? Doesn't that strike you a little strange? Well, hey, I'm the first one to say it's a great country, but it's a strange culture. We got a strange culture. This has got to be the only country in the world that could ever come up with a disease like bulimia. Got to be the only country in the world where some people have no food at all and other people eat a nourishing meal and puke it up intentionally. This is a country where tobacco kills 400,000 people a year, so they ban artificial sweeteners. Because a rat died. You know what I mean? This is a place where alcohol ruins more lives than cancer, and everybody gets upset when some athlete gets hooked on cocaine. You know, Time magazine and Newsweek, they put cocaine on the cover, but they put the liquor advertisements inside the magazine. It's the old American double standard, you know, say one thing, do something different. And of course, the country is founded on the double standard. That's our history. We were founded on a very basic double standard. This country was founded by slave owners who wanted to be free. Am I right? A group of slave owners who wanted to be free. So they killed a lot of white English people in order to continue owning their black African people so they could wipe out the rest of the red Indian people and move west and steal the rest of the land from the brown Mexican people, giving them a place to take off and drop their nuclear weapons on the yellow Japanese people. You know what the motto? You know what the motto of this country ought to be? You give us a color, we'll wipe it out. We got it. So anyway, about 80 years after the Constitution is ratified, 80 years later, the slaves are freed. Not so you'd really notice it, of course. Just sort of on paper. And that was, of course, during the Civil War. Now, there's another phrase I dearly love. That is a true oxymoron if I've ever heard one. Civil War. Do you think any country could really have a civil war? Say, pardon me. I'm awfully sorry. I'm awfully sorry. So, now, of course, the Civil War has been over for about 120 years, but not so you'd really notice it. Because we still have these people called Civil War buffs. People who thought it was a really keen war. And they study the battles carefully, and they try to improve on the strategies and the tactics to increase the body count, in case we have to go through it again sometime. In fact, some of these people actually get dressed up in uniform once a year and go out and refight these battles. You know what I say? Use live ammunition, assholes, would you please? You might just raise the intelligence level of the American gene pool. But what do you expect? Hey, come on, this is a warlike country. We come from that Northern European, basically the Northern European genes, the blue eyes, those blue eyes. Boy, everybody in the world learned real quick, didn't they? When those blue eyes sail out of the north, you better nail everything down, motherfucker. Nail it down, strap it down, or they'll grab it. If they can't take it home, they'll burn it. If they can't burn it, they'll fuck it. That's what happened to us. And it's a warlike country, come on. I mean, forget foreign policy. Even the domestic rhetoric is warlike. Everything about our domestic policy invokes the thought of war. We don't like something in this country, we declare war on it. The war on poverty, the war on drugs, the war on crime, the war on AIDS, the war on cancer. We got the only national anthem that mentions fucking rockets and bombs in the goddamn thing, you know what I mean? All right.
without shame. In the name of a piece of dirt, for a change of accent, or the color of your shirt. Better the pride that resides in the citizen of the world, than the pride that divides when a colorful rag is unfurled. Oh, wide world, an endless universe, yet we keep looking through the eyeglass in reverse. Don't feed the people, but we feed the machines. Can't really feel what international means. In different circles, we keep holding our ground. In different circles, we keep spinning round and round.
I don't know, man. World's nuts, man. It's all good for Clinton. Anytime something bad happens, good for Bill Clinton, just get people off his ass. Stop thinking about me. Good. Kids got shot. Good, good. Good, good. People not thinking about me. Ooh, tornadoes. Good, good. Oh, people ain't thinking about me. Clinton damn near got impeached for what? For what? Lied about a blowjob so his wife wouldn't find out. Is that against the law? Do you need the Supreme Court for that one? You could have took that one to the People's Court. Could have took that one to Judge Judy. She'd have knocked it out in a half hour plus commercials. What the fuck did Clinton do? They was charging him with shit I didn't even know was crimes. Like, oh, you got us some gifts. So what? He got us some gifts. That's his friend. You can't buy your friend a gift. Try to get a job. You can't get your friend a job. 80% of people in this room got their job because a friend recommended them. It's against the law to get your friend a job. Shit, she blew him for a couple of months. The least he could do is give her a recommendation. It's the least he could do.
Oh, man. I did a lot of shit before I got into comedy, man. This would be like a bus boy and shit. That's a shit, boy. Bus boy. You know what that means? That means you take the bus home, yeah? No matter what happens, you end up taking the bus home. Fucking, I did a lot of shit before I got into comedy, man. I used to work at McDonald's, making minimum wage, man. You know what it means when they pay you minimum wage? That means they don't give a fuck about you, okay? They don't care about your Christmas. They don't care if your kids got shoes on. You know, the boss goes, hey, how you doing? You know how the fuck I'm doing. I'm doing bad, that's how I'm doing. How the fuck could I be doing anything with this little bit of money you're paying me? Nah, just to make minimum wage, man. You know what it means when they pay you minimum wage? You know what they're trying to tell you? It's like, hey, if I could pay you less, I would. but it's against the law. I got bused to school to a poor white neighborhood. That shit is scary. Everybody's scared of niggas, everybody's scared of Puerto Ricans. Ain't nothing more horrifying than a bunch of poor white people, boy. That's the scariest shit in the world, boy, because they're capable of anything, boy. And they blame niggas for everything. You get some poor trailer trash motherfuckers, boy. They will blame niggas on everything. Space shuttle blew up. Those damn niggers, that's what it was. Shit. Shit is crazy, man. Motherfuckers got no education. They just blame shit on niggas and shit. I was like, white people don't need to be poor. All white people should have money, because they don't know how to handle that shit when they don't got no money. Niggas are like, I'm broke, fuck it, let me go hang out. What the hell? Why, you see some broke white people? Them motherfuckers are damn near ready to cry in the middle of the street. See, I have no money. How'd this happen? I'm white. That shit is crazy now. All this homelessness, they got white bums now and shit. Shit is crazy, bro. My mother would never give money to a white bum. Never. Just look at him and say, no reason for that. So I don't know everything, but I figure like being white's like always having $5. Being black's like always being 50 cents short. You know, it's like, damn, short again. They got layaway?
government be out of a job and stick around inside the slum and see if they can survive. So you can burn your constitution. We don't need your damn solution. Your accusations be contradictions. That's why I sus against America. I'm paranoid in my hysteria. That got me living well aware of the racist structure of this land. So how the hell am I gonna love this land when it's this America? I'm paranoid in my hysteria. That got me living well aware of the racist structure of this land. So how the hell am I gonna love this land when it's this America? I'm paranoid in my hysteria. That got me living well aware of the racist structure of this land. So how the hell am I gonna love this land when it's this America? I'm paranoid in my hysteria. That got me living well aware of the racist structure of this land. So how the hell am I gonna love this land when it's America?
The riots and civil unrest went down about 4 years ago. You promised us federal funding to rebuild our community. What happened?
Well, what happened was that we all knew that was going to be big news for a while, so we all came down here, Bush, Clinton, Wilson, all of us. We got our pictures taken, told you what you wanted to hear, and we pretty much forgot about it.
Did he just say what I think he said?
Let's see where he's going with this.
Insurance down here. We can't get health insurance, fire insurance, life insurance. Why haven't you come out for Senate Bill 2720?
Well, because you haven't really contributed any money to my campaign, have you? You got any idea how much these insurance companies come up with? They pretty much depend on me to get a bill like that and bottle it up in my committee during an election, and in that way, we can kill it when you're not looking.
The Democratic Party don't care about the African American community.
Isn't that obvious? Hey, you got half of your kids out of work and the other half are in jail. Do you see any Democrat doing anything about it? Certainly not me. So what are you gonna do, vote Republican? Come on, you're not gonna vote Republican. Let's call a spade a spade. I mean, come on, you can have a 1 billion man march. If you don't put down that malt liquor and chicken wings and get behind somebody other than a running back who stabs his wife, you're never gonna get rid of somebody like me.
The way things change is because lots of people are working all the time. And, they're working in their communities, in their workplace, or wherever they happen to be, and they're building up the basis for popular movements which are going to make changes. That's the way everything has ever happened in history, whether it was the end of slavery or whether it was the democratic revolutions or anything you want, you name it, that's the way it worked. You get a very false picture of this from the history books. In the history books, there's a couple of leaders, George Washington or Martin Luther King or whatever. And I don't want to say that those people are unimportant, like Martin Luther King was certainly important, but he was not the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King can appear in the history books because lots of people whose names you will never know and whose names are all forgotten and who may have been killed and so on were working down in the South.
And I wonder something better out there. Love and compassion. That day is coming. All else are castles built in the air.
When you have activists and people concerned and people devoting themselves and dedicating themselves to social change or issues or whatever, then people like me can appear, and we can appear to be prominent, but that's only because somebody else is doing the work. My work, whether it's giving hundreds of talks a year or spending 20 hours a week writing letters or writing books, is not directed to intellectuals and politicians. It's directed to what are called ordinary people. Yeah. And what I expect from them is, in fact, exactly what they are, that they should try to understand the world and act in accordance with their decent impulses, and that they should try to improve the world. And many people are willing to do that, but they have to understand. And in fact, as far as I can see, in these things, I feel that I'm simply helping people develop courses of intellectual self-defense.
What did you mean by that? What would such a course be?
I don't mean go to school, because they're not going to get it there. It means you have to develop an independent mind and work on it. Now, that's extremely hard to do alone. You know? The beauty of our system is it isolates everybody. Each person is sitting alone in front of the tube. You know? Now, it's very hard to have ideas or thoughts under those circumstances. You can't fight the world alone. Some people can, but it's pretty rare. The way to do it is through organization. So courses of intellectual self-defense will have to be in the context of political and other organization.
I got into Memphis, and some began to say the threat, talk about the threats that were out. What would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers? Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. And I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. You bothered with their own barbarity. If you can accept it, you will do something that will transform conditions here in Alabama. So I'm not worried this afternoon, however dark it may be, however difficult it may be. I know that it is true, the truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yes, sir. That is another part of that great statement. Yet that scaffold sways the future. Behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadows, keeping watch above his own. William Cullen Bryant is right. Truth crushed the earth will rise again. The Bible is right. You shall reap what you sow. We shall overcome. Now let me proclaim here and now that I am still convinced that the philosophy and practice of nonviolence affords a more excellent way to improve the inadequacies existing in the American social system. The method of nonviolent resistance is effective in that it has a way of disarming the opponent. It exposes his moral defenses, it weakens his morale, and at the same time it works on his conscience. I believe we will win it because the goal of American freedom, used and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up with the destiny of America. It is time to reorder our national priorities. All those who now speak of goodwill and who praise the work of such groups as the President's Commission now have the gravest responsibility to stand up and act for the social changes that are necessary to conquer racism in America. If we as a society fail, I fear that we will learn very shortly that racism is a sickness unto death.
I wonder if you can envision a time when people like myself, again, the naive people of this world, can again take pride in the United States. And is that even a healthy wish now? Because it may be this hunger for pride in our country that makes us more easily manipulated by the powers that you talk about.
I think you first of all have to ask what you mean by your country. Now, if you mean by the country, the government, I don't think you can be proud of it, and I don't think you could ever be proud of it. Or could you be proud of any government? It's not our government, you know. And you shouldn't be. States are violent institutions. The government of any country, including ours, represents some sort of domestic power structure, and it's usually violent. States are violent to the extent that they're powerful. That's roughly accurate. You look at American history, it's nothing to write home about. You know, why are we here? We're here because, say, some 10 million Native Americans were wiped out. That's not very pretty.
Until the 1960s, it was still cowboys and Indians. In the 1970s, for the first time, really, it became possible even for scholarship to try to deal with the facts as they were. For example, to deal with the fact that the Native American population was far higher than had been claimed, millions higher, maybe as many as 10 million higher than had been claimed, and that they had an advanced civilization, and that there was something akin to genocide that took place. Now, we went through 200 years of our history without facing that fact. One of the effects of the 1960s is it's possible to at least begin to come to think about the facts. Well, that's an advance.
Do you think that this activism 20 years ago has made a difference in how our society operates now?
It has not changed the institutions and the way they function. But it has led to very significant cultural changes. Remember, these movements of the 60s expanded in the 70s and expanded further in the 80s, and they reached into other parts of the society and different issues. A lot of things that seemed outrageous in the 60s are taken for granted today. So, for example, take the feminist movement, for example, which barely began to exist in the 60s. Now it's part of general consciousness and awareness. The ecological movements began in the 70s. The third world solidarity movements were very limited in the 60s. It was really Vietnam. And in the 60s also it was a student movement, as you say. Now it's not. Now it's mainstream America.
If there is more dissidence now than you can remember, why do you go on to write that the people feel isolated?
Because I think much of the general population recognizes that the organized institutions do not reflect their concerns and interests and needs. They do not feel that they participate meaningfully in the political system. They do not feel that the media are telling them the truth or even reflect their concerns. They go outside of the organized institutions to act.
We see more and more of our elected leaders and know less and less of what they're doing.
Yeah.
This medium does that.
Very striking. In fact, the presidential elections have been almost removed from the point where the public even takes them seriously as involving a matter of choice. The point is that you have to work. And that's why the propaganda system is so successful. Very few people are going to have the time or the energy or the commitment to carry out the constant battle that's required to get outside of, McNeil Lehrer or Dan Rather or somebody like that. The easy thing to do, you come home from work, you're tired, you've had a busy day, you're not going to spend the evening carrying out a research project. So you turn on the tube, and say it's probably right. Or you look at the headlines in the paper and then you watch the sports or something. And that's basically the way the system of indoctrination works. Sure, the other stuff is there, but you're going to have to work to find it. Modern industrial civilization has developed within a certain system of convenient myths. The driving force of modern industrial civilization has been individual material gain, which is accepted as legitimate, even praiseworthy, on the grounds that private vices yield public benefits in the classic formulation. Now, it's long been understood very well that a society that is based on this principle will destroy itself in time. It can only persist with whatever suffering and injustice it entails as long as it's possible to pretend
that the destructive forces that humans create are limited, that the world is an infinite resource, and that the world is an infinite garbage can. At this stage of history, either one of two things is possible. Either the general population will take control of its own destiny and will concern itself with community interests, guided by values of solidarity and sympathy and concern for others, or alternatively, there will be no destiny for anyone to control. As long as some specialized class is in a position of authority, it is going to set policy in the special interests that it serves. But the conditions of survival, let alone justice, require rational social planning in the interests of the community as a whole, and by now that means the global community. The question is whether privileged elites should dominate mass communication and should use this power as they tell us they must, namely to impose necessary illusions, to manipulate and deceive the stupid majority and remove them from the public arena. The question in brief is whether democracy and freedom are values to be preserved or threats to be avoided. In this possibly terminal phase of human existence, democracy and freedom are more than values to be treasured. They may well be essential to survival. Thank you.